Welcome, everyone, to the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals podcast series, featuring great discussions, insight, and resources on all things related to education and administration. Welcome back to another episode on the MASSP podcast. My name is Ryan Casey, once again joined by my favorite co-host, Nina Davis. What's going on, Nina?
Hey, Ryan. So happy to be back here with you, doing what we do.
We are wrapping up season 6, if you can believe it, of the MASSP podcast. And Nina and I are going to get back to work over summer and come up with a whole nother slew of episodes for season 7. But we want to end season 6 kind of on a cool note. It's that time of the year where we're starting to wrap up the school year. We're thinking about all the things that went great or challenges that occurred throughout the school year. We're starting to reflect on that, plan for the next school year. And we just thought it would be a really great opportunity to just kind of sit down with someone that can walk us through kind of their process of how do you determine if the year was a success? How do you evaluate all the different amazing things that occurred throughout the year? How do you plan out what needs to be done for next year if you're worrying about growth and things like that? So we thought it would be a great idea. Actually, it was Nina's idea. I'm not going to take credit for it, Nina, don't worry. To talk to the principal of the year for 2022, and that is Nicole Carter from Novi High School. And she is on the podcast with us today. So thanks, Nicole, for being with us so much.
Good afternoon, Ryan and Nina. Thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity to talk with you.
And so before we hop into maybe your process and how you kind of reflect and plan, can you just give the listeners a little bit of information about yourself?
This is my 23rd year of serving the Novi Community School District. I taught civics, econ, and AP US Government and Politics for 8 years prior to transitioning into what I like to call the light side of being an effective educator, school administration. And I've had the delight of being in that position now for 15 years.
Great. So Nicole, right now it's May, which means we've almost made it through another year. How do you go through and evaluate or reflect on the school year? So what's your method that has been most successful over the years, and has the process changed much over time?
I would say the best method that I use and have used for years is just the concept of reflecting in a journal. In my beginning years of being an administrator, I was really diligent and did a nice job of almost journal writing every day. And then slowly but surely, the nature of the job became more tedious and taxing. So I started doing journal writing either weekly or minimally monthly, kind of to do a reflection on what transpired over the course of the month, what were some wins, and also identifying areas of challenge. One strategy that I utilize with my administrative team is we consistently incorporate an after action review protocol that we go over and analyze different events that we host, different programming that we implement, different initiatives that we're trying to drive home. We do a critical analysis to see how impactful it is and make a determination as to how we can improve it and what direction we can go from there.
Okay, that's great. So I love that you're journaling and that you're constantly reflecting, because obviously to be greater, we have to reflect on the things that we're doing. Do you also take that journaling? Are you reflecting monthly? Are you reflecting at the end of the year? Just what's the frequency that you find that works best?
Minimally monthly, depending on the week and the amount of extra time that I have. That will determine how often I'm doing it. But minimally on a monthly basis, I strive to kind of write a reflective journal of, like I said before, identifying my wins, identifying my challenges, identifying specific areas of growth, incorporating ideas on what I can do to be a better servant to my students and my staff and my stakeholders. One thing too that I'm intentional about is empowering staff to give feedback on the year. And so one thing that I've done annually since I became the principal here is I create a slideshow for the end of the year where each department is charged with identifying points of pride. And then during that staff meeting, each department is able to come forward, in front of their peers, highlighting some, remarkable feats that they've made as a department, the impact that they've made on our students and our school.
I'm curious, Nicole, do the other people on your admin team, do they journal as well, or do they have a different method and maybe how they personally reflect?
In regards to other members of my team, I can't really speak to specifically what they do, but in regards to making a determination about how successful the year is, like I said, we have weekly admin huddles. It's an honored period of time where the agenda is shared. That's another thing that I learned, that, the importance of shared distributed leadership. I create, the agenda and put items that I think are important, but then I also empower the other administrators to put items on there that they either have questions about or things that they're working on, or if there's something that is of concern to them. It's kind of this non-judgmental space where we come together and we talk about best practices, what is working, what isn't working, and what we need to do as a collective group to improve our school.
So as you look through your journal, you're doing your weekly huddles, you are evaluating, as you mentioned, with your team after various events or programs wrap or after they occur throughout the year. How do you take that information then and start planning for the next year? I'm curious to know, are you focused on events and programs? Are you more focused on, school improvement goals? Are you focused on culture maybe, or maybe it's a combination of all those things possibly, I imagine. I'm just curious, how do you take that information as you're discussing with your team or that you're looking at in your journal, and how does that impact what you're going to do the following year?
Okay, so the planning for next year, it does start in May and it concludes in August. But as you know, planning is ongoing, right? In order for you to be, influential or to make changes or differences within your community, it has to be ongoing. And so we revisit the goals that we communicate. So over the summer, we identify the goals, and then I send a communication to my staff and a back to school welcome back letter, where I've gone through and analyzed the feedback that I've received from my coffee conversations that I have with staff. We conduct an annual climate and culture survey for both students, staff, and community stakeholders. And after analyzing that information, we're able to identify what our top priority areas are. So for example, a few years ago, in the survey, mental health came up as the top priority for both students, staff, and for parents and their guardians. And so as a direct result of that following school year, we launched our student mental health committee as well as our staff mental health committee to tend to trying to crush the stigma around depression, anxiety, and mental health challenges.
That's great, Nicole. We imagine, you being principal of the year, we know you're rocking it over there. So I imagine you reflect sometimes on the year and think, wow, everything went great. Everything went well. There were some really great takeaways. So my question is, how do you then take that and approach your planning for the next year? And I think even more importantly, how do you celebrate that success with your staff, on the achievements that you've made collectively?
I would say with intentionality, we do celebrate our staff, not just at the end of the school year, but that too is ongoing. I think it's important that we fill their buckets on a monthly basis. And so, we do different things in an effort to do that. I would say, when I think about one of the major drivers that we have currently in our district in regards to improvement would be our district MyKit plan. And it's something where we've identified over the next 7 years, we're going to be committed to teaching and learning and professional development around understanding by design. And so some of those tenets we try to weave into even how we go about conducting our staff meetings and elevating the conversation around that. Can you repeat? I'm sorry, I kind of got off track there.
No, I think you actually answered. I just kind of wanted to know, how do you keep staff motivated and celebrate those success that you have collectively?
So the first Tuesday of each month, I communicate to my staff what's called the Carter's coaching tip, where I take a view from the balcony is the phrase that I like to use. It's actually from a leadership book, Leadership on the Line by Heifetz and Litsky, that I learned about when I went to Harvard a few years ago. And I go literally, there's a location in our building where it's a balcony, and I do stand there and I kind of just analyze and observe the students, the staff, and just get a feel for what's going on within the community. And then I come back to my office and I craft this coaching tip based on conversations that I've had with students, conversations that I've had with parents, conversations that I've had with staff. And it's basically my effort to encourage and motivate them to continue to doing the great work that they're doing. And it's something that it's amazing, depending on the Tuesday, the feedback that I get from some of my teachers. Obviously, I keep kind of a log, and I actually print off some of the responses that I get from them. Saying, wow, this was timely, I really needed this. So for example, the most recent Tuesday was Teacher Appreciation Day. And I just talked to them about, how important and how significant and how profound what they do is. And I shared with them some learnings that I had from my cooperative teacher at Michigan State University. And it explained to them that I'd recently reached out to her with a handwritten note when I'd earned the Michigan Principal of the Year to express gratitude to her for some of the things that she had taught me in regards to how to be an effective teacher. And I even shared with them some pictures that she then ended up sending me an email back with pictures from my internship year at Mason Middle School. And in the pictures, I look like I'm 10. So I shared those pictures with my staff, and they got a real kick out of it. And a few of them responded and said, wow, I never thought to actually pause and take the time to write my cooperating teacher, but you know what, I'm going to now. Because I think it's important for you to take the time to acknowledge and appreciate those people who have gone before us and those people who have poured into us to become the excellent educators that we all are.
I have to imagine that obviously you mentioned your staff appreciates it on that first Tuesday of each month, but that's got to be probably something you look forward to doing, and almost kind of cathartic in terms of being able for you to kind of think about all the good things that are going on. So I have to imagine that's you enjoy getting to send that email. So hopefully for people that are listening, they realize it is important to take the time to have moments like that with your staff where it isn't all down to business and important reminders and observations,
Yeah, I really do look forward to it. It's an opportunity for me to be vulnerable with my staff. I feel like the more vulnerable that we are as leaders, not coming into a space, having all the answers, knowing it all, demonstrating to our teachers and our social workers and our counselors that we too are human, that we all fall short. It speaks volumes to the impact that it can have on staff morale and just the climate and the relationship that you have, with your staff.
So I want to go back when we were talking about how you're planning for next year, and you talk to different stakeholders in that process. I'm just curious, what does that process look like? And is it a little different depending on what it is you're working on? So for example, is this done via, some sort of form or survey that's sent out? Do you actually invite certain stakeholders in for more of a committee meeting, or is it an open forum that takes place as you are trying to get feedback from various stakeholders?
So I would say formally, like I said, we conduct a survey, a climate culture survey that goes out to staff, students, and members of the community. With intentionality with the staff, I have coffees with Carter or cookies with Carter events that happen on a monthly basis where, I've established this space where I tell them that I want them to come in here and speak their truth. And they're not going to be rated or evaluated in that setting, but it gives me an opportunity to kind of gauge the temperature of where my teachers are, or, where my support staff is. And so, over the course of the year, I keep copious notes on all the different topics that come up. And then, like I said, as an administrative team, we go through that information together. And historically, we've done that. I've hosted my own version of an admin retreat in August. One of our assistant principals, actually it was our athletic director, had a cottage up north. And so I organized kind of this, real cheesy agenda. And we had games and activities that we participated in to build capacity and relationship with each other. But then at the same time, we also had, that was the first day. And then the second day was down to business in regards to how are we going to approach this school year, maintaining our commitment to excellence for our students in the community. And this year we're super excited because this will be the first time that my administrative team and I will be able to attend EdCon, and we're planning on carving out some time while we are there to start in June, and then revisit and connect with each other during the month of July, to where when we come back in August, we can really hone our craft and have our attention on those one or two things. It's one thing too that I will give advice you might come up with a list of 10 or 12 things that you think are important and that you want to work on, but you need to really be realistic in your approach and identify one or two that you really can get after and dedicate your energy towards, so that at the end of the year, you can sit back and say, you know what, this was our goal. This is how we went about accomplishing that goal. And now what's next?
Two things. Number one, you and I operate on the same wavelength, because I love using alliteration to describe events. So I did coffee with Casey. So I like that idea there. And I just want our listeners to know we did not pay Nicole to mention EdCon, but shameless plug time. EdCon 2022 up in beautiful Traverse City. Everyone should come. It'll be a great time. Our first one in 3 years. So hopefully others are going to take Novi's lead and come up with their administrative teams to reflect and plan forward for next year as well.
And look at Ryan stealing my thunder. I was going to talk about EdCon also, but hey, anyone that has not been to EdCon, this is your year to be there. We're going to have a new middle school track, especially for our middle school educators as well. So I just have to put in the plug for EdCon there also. So now back to the interview. Nicole, my question for you, you talked a lot about the school improvement process towards the beginning of our interview, and how, you know, your building plan in coordination with the district plan. So I'm just curious, at Novi, how much flexibility do you have in planning your building goals versus what the district has planned for you?
This year in particular, there wasn't a whole lot of flexibility, but we've been talking about launching a very strategic district level plan now for a few years. So it wasn't as if we were caught off guard as to what those goals would be. The seeds were planted last year, and then the work of our coaching office at the district level, our Office of Academics, as well as insights from our content area leaders at the different building levels, helped to solidify and design that plan. And then as building principals, we have the responsibility of living into that plan. And on a monthly basis, we were required to provide feedback to our assistant superintendent of academics in regards to our progress. And then what was really fascinating is just this past week at our district level meeting, the coaches were able to present the results. So it was like the plan, the results, and then the next step. And so it was kind of an opportunity for us to come into a space and celebrate our work. And, you know, it was very beneficial for everyone in that space to live into something that was actually written. And this idea of we can all strategize, but it's how you go about executing is you know, most important.
So again, looking forward, looking to next year, do you typically try and have some sort of theme, if you will, to kind of drive what you're going to be doing with staff or students or parents, or maybe a saying or a quote or anything like that? I was never very clever when it came to that type of thing. So I'm just curious to know.
Yes, I do. I actually meet with our student council executive board members. I'll meet with them here in June before school gets out. And I'll continue to have conversations with them over the summer about what they would think would be a neat theme, and make sure that that theme is interwoven or interconnected with our initiatives and goals. So for example, this past year, our theme was under construction. And part of that has to do with the fact that as a school building, we were under construction as a result of a tremendous bond that was passed within our community, where we have secure entrances to our high school being built. And then to this concept of under construction, coming back to school, you know, full time after, you know, we're still navigating a global pandemic, but you know, it's minimized to a degree. But this idea of we're always under construction, there's always room to grow. And so that kind of was the sentiment and theme that we went with, you know, this year as a school community.
So Nicole, what advice do you have for other administrators who are trying to make sense of the last few crazy years that we've had, and, you know, are trying to plan for a normal year next school year?
Well, as we reflect and make sense of the last few years, I think, you know, it's important. Here's another acronym of mine, Ryan. I strive to exercise PTA, and I encourage my staff to do the same. And so P stands for pause. I think we all need to give ourselves time to take a deep breath, reflect on what has happened, think about where we've been, what we've gone through, and what we've overcome. Keeping in mind that, our focus really should be on the good. There's been so many learnings that have come about over the last 24 months when it comes to, education. We were pushed to make decisions and do things that would have been deemed unorthodox. And so if anything, for me, the phrasing normal, I don't think any school year is quote unquote normal. But I feel like we were forced to improve and make changes to our schools, to our systems and our programs and protocols in a very powerful way. So for example, here, for lunches, we created a new space for students to eat that we would have historically never opened up. And this was last year when we were face to face. And as a result of feedback from kids, we continued to have that space open this year. And so something as simplistic as that, we're going to carry that on for many years to come because it's a benefit to our kids. And then to just adopting that attitude of gratitude personally and collectively. Each month, we develop a kind of daily affirmation as an administrative team, and we hold ourselves accountable to try to live into that. And for me, it's that concept of, expect unfinished business. If you really genuinely care about what you do and you love what you do, then you are going to, dedicate time to develop yourself and reflect on your areas of strength, but then also identify those areas of growth and be willing and courageous to race those. And so, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to next school year, but, actually, I'm super looking forward to our commencement here. I always look at that event like it's a culmination, obviously, for the graduates of the class of 2022. But this group of students in particular have gone through so much. And so we're just really excited to have that opportunity to celebrate and honor them in an appropriate way in a couple of weeks.
That's great advice, and best of luck with commencement approaching. It's that time of year, but it is an exciting thing to observe, and it, makes you remember, as you mentioned, kind of why we do what we do, right? So, Nicole, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it, and hopefully people will get to see you and your team. I've got a feeling up at EdCon, I've got a feeling that Wendy will probably be pointing you out to let everybody know as the principal of the year. So that'll be a great opportunity for others to come and introduce themselves and maybe pick your brain, kind of like we did today. So we just really, really appreciate your time. I know it's a busy time of year.
Oh, thank you again for the opportunity. And I'm definitely looking forward to meeting and networking with other principals across this great state.
Absolutely. Thanks, Nicole. It's always a pleasure.
Take care.
That's going to do it for our final MASSP podcast episode for the 2021-22 school year. Nina and I will be back at it next year for season 7. Thanks for listening, everybody. Have a great day.